Hi everyone, Angus Pryor here, and welcome to the show. Look, I'm really excited today. It's taken me a while to get this man on the show, but finally here we are. Dr Nimesh Patel. Welcome, Nimesh. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Angus. Thanks for having me.
Nimesh has got many claims to fame. He's the founder of the Timeless Smiles dental practice in Sydney. But today, one of the things we're going to talk about is his new publication, which is called the Huddle Book. If you're watching on video, I have it here. This is a beautiful publication. I love even touching it. I don't know what the cover's made of it, but it feels very high quality. But Nimesh, before we get into the actual Huddle Book, I thought it would be interesting for the viewers and listeners just to understand a bit about your story. So why don't we go back to the beginning? Can you remember your first interest in dentistry?
Yes, certainly. I think it was a bit of a fluke, you can say, or it wasn't the first dream of being a dentist. I was actually got into mechanical engineering when I go back in 1997. And I did about 3 months of dealing with the diesel engines and actually learning about all the mechanics of it and ended up playing with the tools and all that. Because I think back in India, after year 12, you need a certain percentage, just like over here, after year 12, to get into dentistry. And I was just short of 1 mark. And in 1 mark, there are about more than 500 students. So there was a big gap and I couldn't get into it. So after 3 months of doing engineering, I got a call or a letter saying that now you got a chance to get back into dentistry because we got few students actually didn't sign up or they quit. And I said, fantastic, let's get into it because that's what I wanted to do. And of course, here I am, I think out of those 7, I was the 5th one to get into it. So that's how I got into dentistry. And my brother-in-law at that time, he was ear, nose, and throat specialist. So he got a recommendation that I did my medicine from the same uni. So it's fantastic if you got a chance.
Oh,
that's how I got into dentistry. Yeah.
Can you remember sort of at what age you were interested in dentistry or what actually got you interested in dentistry?
So mostly I was more interested in medicine in general first. And of course, we're talking about back home in India, where probably my dad and mom were also quite interested to me going into some sort of medicine as well, because of course, no one in my family was a doctor. And my brother was having all the chances to get into medicine, but he didn't because he just didn't want to. He wanted computer science. And of course, I was all about doing a medicine and I didn't see myself great in doing mathematics. So I said, well, I like the biology and the human anatomy side of things. And that's how I got into medicine. So medicine was, again, after year 12, I couldn't get into medicine. So second tier was dentistry. And that's how the dentistry was the choice.
It always interests me, people's journey there. Truth is, my father's a vet. And he wanted to do medicine too, and he could have got in, but literally someone came to his high school and they were offering scholarships to go and do vet, and he went, oh, okay, I guess I'll just become a vet then. So I suppose what happens, to be fair, is, when you're a late teenager, I mean, you don't 100%, many people don't really know what they want to do anyway, so this is the path that you've trodden. So that's interesting. So you did your dental studies in India. I'm going to assume you practiced there for some time?
Not long, actually. So from my day one, I got into dentistry. I already made a decision that I'm going to go out of India because my brother was already settled in the United States. So I actually knew from the day one that I'll be finishing my dentistry. I'll do what the preparation takes me to do, either to States or out of India. And that's what the goal was. So straight after finishing the dental degree, I actually did all the preparation. First, the idea was to go to United States. And so I started preparing for the exams. But I think in those days, the visa process and all those things were a bit tricky. So I ended up exploring Australia because a friend of mine, he came to Melbourne and he said, well, it's fantastic. Why don't you just consider as a second choice? And I said, well, there is nothing wrong because I think to go to States, I had to do about 3 years more dentistry on top of what I already did and spend 300,000 US dollars.
Wow.
And that was a handsome figure for my working class dad. So I said, well, let me try something that I can make it a little bit lighter for him. So I think Australia was a choice to come. And I think I made that right choice when I look back. It was July 2004, my first day here.
Well, can I say on behalf of all Australians, I'm glad you chose Australia. It's interesting. I mean, as I said, people's journeys always fascinates me. So you arrived in Australia in 2004 from India. You'd known that you had a dream of moving somewhere else, possibly not Australia. Can you remember sort of what it was like when you first arrived here?
I remember it really well because it was 9th of July 2004. I actually came to do my master's in public health in University of Wollongong. And my first day into the country, it was one of the coldest days in Sydney. And some of the friends who I never met, they were going to come and pick me up from the airport. So it was, and the flight was a bit late. And and that's how they actually waited me for about 2-3 hours more than what they were supposed to. And I got in. And I still remember on my very first day, I actually took a public transport from Parramatta all the way to Wollongong. And I made it by changing the trains through Central Station, buying a ticket, everything. And I was there to attend my first class at 12 o'clock. So all my professors were quite impressed. He says, it's your first day in the country and you are here to attend the class. So that's very impressive. And one of the frightening part was I got back to my home at 10:30 at night. It was very late because my last class finished at 8:30 at night. And it took me 2 hours. So everyone was actually quite worried. What happened to this new boy? He just came in and he disappeared.
Yeah, on the first day. And I mean, it's not to say that mobile phones weren't around then, but certainly nothing like they are now.
Yeah, no, it was, I did have a mobile phone, but I just got a SIM card and the number, and I didn't have my friend's number. So they actually couldn't call me or I couldn't call them. And it was good. It was good.
Well, that's good. So you're doing your master's, you said, in public dentistry at Wollongong, is that correct?
Public health, yeah. So it's a general public health. That was the course that I got into. It was 2 years master's, yeah.
And then what happened after that?
So while I was doing the course, of course, I was very lucky to get a dental assistant work with Dr. Sarkis Nalbandian, who is a prosthodontist. Many of the listeners actually might know him. He is in Sydney. So I was actually working with him as a dental assistant. And at the same time, I was actually preparing for the dental exams, what we call Australian Dental Council exams here. And I was preparing for the exams, doing my master's. And at the end of about a year and a half, by December 2005, I finished both dental exams and nearly my master's. So yeah, that was pretty much the practice. I was actually being an assistant. In the same practice, I started working as a dentist.
Interesting. And so how long did you end up working there?
I was there. So I only had one job in Australia, and that was that job. So I worked in the same practice for about 8 years. And the same dentist actually helped me to set up my first practice in Sydney.
And that's where you are now at Timeless Smiles, is that right?
At Timeless Smiles, yes, in 2011.
Wow, that's impressive. Now, look, let's talk about, because I think a lot of the people listening, they either are practice owners or they've got aspirations of practice ownership. And it's fair to say practice ownership, Nimesh, it's not for the faint-hearted, is it?
Absolutely not. I mean, it is not something, it needs to be loved. You need to have that business love rather than actually just that bug of owning a practice, because I hear many people that I really want to own a practice, but it's not a fancy thing that people think that it ends. Actually, it's just the beginning of a whole new dimension, which is nobody is taught as a practice ownership or a business skills. And we all know that it's not a cup of tea for everyone to go through that management side of things. Dentistry is the easiest. And that's what actually I wrote in my first acknowledgement of a Huddle book, that on any given day, dentistry is the easiest part. What it's hard is to manage the dental practice and dental team and the marketing and the every other aspect of business ownership, I would say.
Yeah.
But I love every aspect of it, and that was the reason actually I got into the ownership. Yeah.
Did you because the path, at least historically, is relatively predictable. One graduates from university, you work for someone else for a while, and then either because you feel like you just expected to open up a practice, or maybe you've got your rose-colored glasses on and you think, well, I'm not earning as much as the owner here, and you open up a practice. I mean, I know you mentioned that your parents were quite working class. Was there any sort of business background there, or just was there sort of kind of expected next step for you?
So no, there was no business background in my parents' side, or neither on my brother's side. My brother has been an employee in his company for 22 years, and my father has been a bank manager for all his life. So, I mean, in terms of the business ownership, there was no such thing. But I think the state where I'm from, it's the western part of India and Gujarat. I think the business is something they say it runs into the blood. So I think everyone who you deal with, your proximity, they all talk about the business side of things. And it's more on the freedom side. So for me, if someone asked me in one phrase why I wanted my own practice, it was freedom. Yeah. It was freedom of choice. It was freedom of decision making. It was freedom of exploring your ideas, because it's like a lion in a cage. You want to actually go out and do your own things, and don't get me wrong. I mean, associateship is such an integral part of dental practice that you have to work with a good mentor. And I was an associate for 6 years. And there are not many associates that are lasting 6 years in the same practice. So I worked in 2 private practices, and both were really, really busy and really high-end dental practices for 6 years. And I learned a lot. And that was the only reason that I could take an initiative in a Sydney metro area to start a practice from scratch. And I had zero passion on my day one. All I had is a building. So that's how I started the practice in 2011. And every dental practice or dentist I met at that time is, Nimesh, you're doing a suicide. So you better watch out.
Not exactly moral support, Nimesh.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said that's not exactly, we've been through there, we have done there, and it doesn't work. You rather want to actually get someone else's practice and transition and all those things. And I said, well, I did try that. Not that I didn't try that, but the goodwill at that time was 1 million plus in Sydney. Just the goodwill plus the practice amount and plus everything else. And I said, well, rather I fork out $2 million before I get $1 on someone else's goodwill. I would rather build up my own goodwill.
Yeah, good on you. Look, I think, look, a couple of things that you said that resonated with me. One little disclosure to the listeners. The truth is that at one point in my life, I lived in Fiji. I was a diplomat, and even living in Fiji, and Fiji is essentially half Indian and half Fijian, and even the locals there said the Gujaratis, they're good business people. So I knew that from back in those days. But I think the other thing that struck me about what you said, and at one point in my life, I was working in the immigration department. I mean, I, as it were, I take my hat off to the sort of go-getter attitude of migrants. I'm not saying that's true with everyone. I'm not saying that non-migrants aren't go-getters, but it's just kind of, it's this approach of like, do whatever it takes for this to work. And in many ways, there's two things that I observe about you from our discussion so far. The first is just this sort of dogged determination to make things happen and have a go, you know, like you describe your story of what it was like from day one. And the other thing that I thought was actually quite apt in a way is you've got a practice called Timeless Smiles. And I'm not saying that what you've done's been timeless, but, you know, in a sense, you've been a person that's stuck at things for an extended period. And as it were, here we are on the other side of this, celebrating your success.
Exactly. I mean, the resilience and the persistence is such a key part of any success stories. And we only saying it, I'm not saying any big things about my own success story. All I'm trying to share with any of the colleagues is I hear from the new graduates many times that, is it worth enough to work as an associate, or is it worth enough to actually spend time in the same organization for a long time? Do we achieve more? Or why don't I just open up a practice quickly enough? Will I lose out on anything? So all I would like to share is, I mean, the great mentorship and the great learning, there is no replacement. I think gray hair doesn't come from, you know, yeah, you might have some saying around that. So you need to have that experience around there. And I think I still remember that phrase that my dentist said, that everyone knows what they know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So as long as you know what you know and what you don't know, I think that's the thing that's going to get you in your dental practice. And so you really need to know your dentistry. I mean, there's so much fluff I can see on social media nowadays, and I'm a black and white person when it comes to very straightforward speaking. So I'm not going to say that there's any easy money or easy things out there to own a dental practice or to actually just work as a dentist.
Yeah.
It's a competitive marketplace. It's you need to know what you're doing and you need to know what not to do. And there are many aspects of it. And as a marketing guru, I think you also know that probably marketing is not everybody's business. So if you don't actually invest into the training, into learning, into marketing, into pretty much constant, it's a daily job. It's 24/7. I mean, once you are a practice owner, you never sleep without thinking about it.
Yeah. Yes. I as a business owner myself, I'm actually relatively late as an entrepreneur. I didn't start as an entrepreneur until my 40s, but my observations from working with dentists for the past 7 years is I've never seen, and I'd underline never, seen a flourishing dental practice where the owner decided to do everything by themselves. I've just never seen it, and it doesn't happen. And what you describe, you know, whether it's your willingness to learn from a mentor or to engage with people for all of these different parts of the practice, you know, the idea that you would do a dental degree and sort of by osmosis become a business expert or a marketing expert or an HR expert, it just doesn't happen. You know, what I see, Nimesh, is the practices that are really thriving, they embrace the full spectrum of resources that they've got available. And if that means bringing in expert help or getting educated, then so be it. So, yeah, I completely agree. Look, let's stick with your practice ownership for a bit, and then we're going to get on to the Huddle book. You've been an owner for 10 years now. Are you quite at the 10-year anniversary, or is that flicked over yet? What month did you open?
Yeah, flicked over actually. So we are on the 11th year this year. So,
okay, very good. Yeah. What would you say to yourself? You know, what advice would you give to yourself, kind of, you know, going back a bit over 10 years for when you started up the practice?